It was one of the most unsettling sights they had ever seen. Their father, Elias, was sitting in his old rocking chair, eyes focused on something in his lap, his hands shaking slightly as they held a bundle of sticks. The evening was getting colder, and the three brothers, Jacob, Samuel, and Eli, stood before him, waiting. The sky was tinged with the last light of dusk, but none of them could shake the unease that had settled in their hearts. Elias hadn't spoken a word all day, and the silence hung heavily around them. "Father," Jacob said, stepping forward cautiously, "what is it? What do you need to tell us?" Elias lifted his eyes slowly, his weathered face creasing into a faint smile. "Come, sit with me. It's time to teach you something important," he said, his voice soft but clear. And so, the three brothers sat around their father, eager yet anxious, wondering what their father, a man who had always been full of strength, might have in mind now. Their father had been a man of few words, but when he did speak, it was always something that stuck with them. They knew this moment was going to be different, and they braced themselves for what was coming next. Elias was getting older, his body frailer, but his mind remained sharp. For years he had run the farm with his sons, teaching them the ways of the land, the importance of hard work, and the value of family. He had raised them to be strong, independent men, each with their own skills. Jacob, the oldest, had the mind for farming and machinery, making the farm run smoothly. Samuel, the middle son, was the builder, the fixer, the one who knew how to keep things in working order. Eli, the youngest, had the gift with animals. They were good at what they did, and their farm flourished because of it. But as the years passed, the brothers had begun to drift apart. Small arguments had turned into bigger ones, and their once seamless teamwork started to crack. They were still brothers, but the unity that had once held them together seemed to be slowly falling apart. Elias had noticed it more than anyone. The arguments had become frequent, sometimes over something as small as who would feed the chickens or who would plow the field. These petty disputes were undermining everything Elias had worked so hard to build. He knew that without unity, the farm and his family wouldn't last. The old man sighed deeply and placed the bundle of sticks gently on his lap. "Jacob, Samuel, Eli," he said softly, "you three are my pride. But I see something in each of you that worries me. You've grown strong in your own ways, but you've forgotten what it means to work together." The three brothers exchanged uneasy glances. They had heard their father speak like this before, but never quite in this way. There was a finality in his tone that made them uneasy. "I want to show you something," Elias continued. "Something simple, but it might just be the most important lesson I can give you." With trembling hands, Elias untied the bundle of sticks, revealing several long, thick pieces of wood, each about a foot long. The brothers looked at each other, unsure of what to expect. Elias handed each of them one stick. "Here," he said, "take these sticks and try to break them." Jacob, being the strongest of the three, was the first to try. He bent the stick with ease, snapping it clean in half. Samuel followed, and Eli did the same. They all broke their sticks without any difficulty. Elias nodded. "Now, take this bundle of sticks," he said, his voice gentle but firm. He handed them the bundle, which had been tied together tightly with a piece of twine. "Try to break it." The brothers pulled at the bundle, each trying to snap it in half with all their strength. But no matter how hard they tried, the bundle remained unbroken. They tugged and pulled, sweat starting to form on their brows, but it was no use. Elias watched them, a faint smile on his lips. "What's the difference between the individual sticks and the bundle?" he asked. The three brothers stood still, bewildered. "The bundle is too strong to break," Jacob said, frowning. "It's harder to snap them all together." "Exactly," Elias said. "Alone, you are like the single sticks. You are strong in your own ways, But alone, you are vulnerable. But together, like the bundle of sticks, you are unbreakable. You must learn to work together, to stand together, if you are to protect what we've built here. This farm, our home, and most importantly, our family. The brothers were silent for a moment, the weight of their father's words sinking in. They had been so focused on their own strengths, their own way of doing things, that they hadn't seen how they were slowly unraveling the fabric of their family. The farm was not just a collection of fields and animals. It was their shared effort, their shared history, and their shared future. Elias took a deep breath. I've watched you argue over trivial things. You bicker over tasks, over what's fair and what's not. But I need you to understand this. It's not about who's right or wrong. It's about working together. Alone, you are just sticks. But together, you are something far stronger than you could ever be alone. The three brothers stood quietly, the silence stretching between them. They were still processing what their father had said, still trying to grasp the depth of the lesson. Do you understand now? Elias asked, his voice frail but steady. Jacob, the oldest, nodded slowly. We understand, Father. Samuel and Eli echoed the same sentiment. They looked at one another, a silent understanding passing between them. They hadn't realized how much their constant fighting had affected their father, or the farm. It was true that they had all worked hard, but the constant bickering had been eating away at the very thing that held them together. We've been foolish, Samuel admitted quietly. We've let our pride and differences get in the way of what matters. Elias smiled, a small but proud smile. It's not too late to change. You are my sons, and I believe in you. But remember this lesson. If you are to succeed, you must work as one. Just like the bundle of sticks, you must stay together, supporting one another through the storms of life. The brothers stood in silence, the weight of their father's words settling in their hearts. As the sun dipped lower, casting the last of its golden light across the land, Elias looked at his sons one last time. You are my legacy, he said. Make me proud. Stick together. Months passed, and things began to change. At first, it was slow. The brothers started communicating more openly, making decisions together, even if it meant compromising. The small disputes that had once escalated into full-blown arguments now seemed trivial. They found that when they worked together, things ran much more smoothly. The farm flourished like never before. Fields were plowed in perfect rows. The animals were healthier, and the barn stood sturdier than it had in years. But more than that, the brothers began to reconnect. They shared stories at the dinner table again, laughed together in the evenings, and worked side by side without the tension that had once been so palpable. Elias, although growing weaker, watched with a sense of quiet satisfaction. His sons had finally understood what he had been trying to teach them. Unity was not just about being together. It was about supporting each other, lifting each other up in times of need. When Elias passed, the brothers took over the farm with a renewed sense of purpose. They knew their father's lessons would live on, not just in the land they worked, but in the way they worked together. They had become a bundle of sticks, unbreakable when they stood united. And so, the farm continued to thrive, a testament to the strength that came from unity, a lesson passed down through the generations. Every time they stood together, side by side, they remembered the bundle of sticks that had once taught them the most important lesson of all.